The Aware Project's aim is to balance the public conversation about psychedelics, spread accurate information, and give a new face to psychedelia. We feel that this change will occur through connection and relationship, one individual at a time. We are calling on everyone whose lives have been improved through the mindful use of psychedelics to educate themselves and become ambassadors for the psychedelic experience. Show those around you that people who use psychedelics mindfully cross all social, racial, economic, and political boundaries.
All right, welcome to the Aware Project, everyone. My name is Ash. I'm the founder of the Aware Project, and if this is the first time joining us this evening, well, this evening obviously, but if this is your first time at the Aware Project, I started about 2.5 years ago in order to create a gathering space for people that were interested in learning more about psychedelics and plant medicines. It started really because I was looking at how many there were several groups up in San Francisco that were meeting around psychedelics and having events and bicycle day and celebrations, and I was looking down in Los Angeles and saying, okay, well, where are the people down here? And there was just next to nothing going on surrounding this education around this stuff. So my ex-boyfriend was an event producer, so I started producing these events, and we've been doing them up to 3 times a month, because we're also doing them in downtown and in San Diego. So if you have friends in San Diego or on the east side that can't make over to the west side events, let them know. And yeah, it's an exciting time to be getting interested in this stuff, because the research recently is really taking off, and the plant medicine is really starting to grow and touch more and more people and activate more and more people. I know that I'm at least one of those people that it's touched very deeply, and it's why the Aware Project exists at all. The other project that I co-founded is called Inner Space Integration, which is a group of support providers that have various different types of skills to provide people support if they've had a big psychedelic experience or plant medicine experience, to be able to share their stories with others, get support. Check out Inner Space on Facebook or innerspaceintegration.com to find out more about those events. Great, so I'm just going to read through the bio for I.AM.LIFE, and then I'm going to invite up the panel to, and then they're going to take it over. It's going to be great. So I.AM.LIFE is a nonprofit event production organization that combines elements of life-affirming art, music, activism, education, community building, and media through ritual and ceremony to create immersive and transformative experiences of interconnectivity and authenticity. Our events are created from and rooted in an appreciation of the Eagle Condor prophecy, merging of the Western and non-Western Indigenous worldviews to restore a sense of communal relations with the sacred. And it's been such a pleasure to be able to be connected to the I.AM.LIFE community, and Tony Moss, who's also here, and they've been bringing their tea house to several of our West Side events, so it's been really great to continue to build this bridge between the Aware Project and I.AM.LIFE. So I'm just thrilled to have you guys here. So I'll let David introduce the rest of the panel, and if you guys could all come up now. So give everyone a round of applause.
Thank you, Ashley Booth. It's an honor to be here with everybody, and I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming out. Yeah, we definitely are not all of the youngers that are working with I.AM.LIFE. We represent a small bite size of kind of our team, I would say, of our core team. There's about 8 of us on our core team, but there's a lot of other younger people that, yeah, we intended this evening to be us sharing our perspectives as kind of the younger generation, speaking to things that are really hot topics today around these conversations of plant medicines, ceremony, our relationship with plants. So we're going to get into a lot of really beautiful content today, and then we're going to speak for maybe an hour, more like a dialogue, a conversation, and then we'll open it up for some questions after. So if you have questions throughout, just hold on to them, maybe write them down, and we'll have a time for Q&A. So cool. Just to begin, we're going to share our stories in a moment, but we'll just begin maybe by introducing ourselves, and I'll start. So my name is David Daniel Brown. I've been a core member of I.AM.LIFE since its origins, and we're going to talk about that in a minute too. I live here in LA, and the path of plant medicines and ceremony, and working with elders and working with different lineages of just traditional ritual technology has really completely opened my eyes and my path and my heart amidst the chaos of the world. So I'm incredibly passionate about what we're going to be talking about tonight, and I guess that's all I'll share for now. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, my name is Sky Noel, and I live around LA, and this path has been really eye-opening for me. To find tribe, to find community is something I've always known was out there, and I'm so grateful to find and create family through this community.
I'm Manny, and I'm a Miami transplant, and came over here totally expecting like a career shift, and found this community and learned so much about myself in such a small amount of time that it's just infinite gratitude for what we're doing and for what we get to do for fun.
Hi, I'm Diana Paez. I'm also from Miami originally. I've been living here in LA for the last 5 years, and I think I've known you guys for like, what, 2, 3 years now? It's just been, like they said, an incredible blessing, a way of discovering myself even deeper, and really grateful to be able to collaborate with my soul family and my community, and really stepping into what I know to be a better side of me, a greater side of me, and to inspire others to do the same.
Oh, so we'll start with the first question before we talk about and expand into a lot of different beautiful concepts and themes. We want to talk about what we're doing with I.AM.LIFE in our events. So our first prompt for this panel is what are our values with I.AM.LIFE? What are we doing in our events? What are we creating? Anything you want to share about what we're doing? Start with that.
So one of the first thing I think about is just creating a deeper connection between other people, and creating spaces where we could bring people together and be clear and open-hearted and welcome people with our hearts, and just invite them to share a moment with us, to talk with us, or to talk amongst each other about important subjects and topics that are affecting our lives and the world today, and just a place to to feel like you're at home and be with family and feel comfortable and be yourself.
So I feel like one of the things that we do bring our tea lounge to multiple festivals, and we create a really sweet space for people who could be having any type of experience. I mean, festivals they have the Zendo tent, which for people having a hard time, but this is very different because they're just hanging out, having tea with you, and sometimes those people are going through a really hard time, they sit down and you totally bring them into this super comfy little chill zone. And it changes a lot of people's lives, and that's been the biggest impact. It changes their experience at that festival. And that's been the biggest impact for me, seeing what we could do just by serving tea and spending some time with people. That's my biggest takeaway right now.
I also want to share that I.AM.LIFE, some of our origins, historically, I.AM.LIFE was founded by Tony Francis Moss, who's in the audience here, and I'll speak on behalf of him for a moment, which is, how did I.AM.LIFE come to be? There was literally this moment, this mystical moment where Tony received from Spirit this mantra of I.AM.LIFE, and it so affected him that it became the name of our organization. We started out with a focus on specifically as a youth empowerment organization. And as all of our youngers have kind of grown and evolved in this intergenerational dialogue, which is a really critical component of the community, aside from the events that we're doing, and from the content that we're bringing to festivals and the workshops and things like this, there is such a strong foundation at our core of community. And we'll talk more about this later. One of the things we seek most in this life is community, this connection with a true sense of community, just a sense of community. And for that to be properly functioning, look to tribal peoples, First Nations people, there's always been a clear connection between our elders and our youngers, and that's been severed in today's world. And so at our core, that's one of our strongest values, is intergenerational dialogue. And this is also one other dimension of healing, is a right relationship between the youngers and the elders. Our culture is very backwards on this, and there's not much in our culture. In most situations, younger people are not being influenced by elders. They're being influenced by their peers, who are also being influenced by media and education. So from that foundation of intergenerational dialogue, we've created these events, and as we've grown, now we're an event production company. We're creating these liminal spaces where people can come together. Some people might come, it's a bit of a bridge of an event. Some people might come thinking they're just coming for music. Some people might come because there's going to be a cacao ceremony. Some people might come because there's going to be a workshop happening. But they get there, and there's actually this ceremonial, ritual sense of the sacred woven into our events that is really unique, and it's something we've been looking at and developing a lot. So our events are through ritual and ceremony, whether with cacao, our relationship with these plant medicines, with guayusa. We are bringing in these sacraments, other psychedelics and entheogens, these are not, but other psychedelics and entheogens are commonly thought of as a sacrament. Well, guayusa can be a sacrament, cacao can be a sacrament, and so these rituals are really, when we combine the activism, when we combine the educational content, when we combine the sense of community and the celebratory devotional music and exotic dance, that gives you a little insight into what we're doing in our events. We're creating these spaces where people can come together and experience interconnectivity and community. So that being said, I want to ask if there's any other critical values that we operate from that you'd like to share a bit about before we move on.
Core values, communitas, collaboration, the beautiful dialogue between the elders and the youngers. The Eagle Condor prophecy is a big part of what we work within, that merging of the mind and the heart through communication and community. Fun is definitely part of what we do. Celebration and doing inner work. Really diving deep and start refining the questions. That we ask. The answers are at the point, but really. Refining what kinds of questions we're asking, so that the universe starts bringing us the kinds of things that we're searching for. Yeah. Any others? Good.
So, from the lens of your personal story, part of our evening tonight is we get to be the younger generation speaking to some of these things, and usually there's older people talking about a lot of things we're about to jump into. So it's important to, I think, frame with the next question, which is, in your story of your journey and your walk that has led you here, how did you get activated? Was there a moment, was there an experience, was there something that catalyze you to find yourself on the path that you are on.
So, being a Miami transplant, the culture over there is very big on drinking, and I drank a lot and kind of like hit a depression at an early age, and just thought that the normal thing was to party it up and to not feel. So I did that for a really long time, and it wasn't until moving over here, which I guess Spirit brought me out here, I kind of like just destroyed everything that I had like previously built, and like left with this like super empty space of like having no friends, and like it was just bad. And I accidentally came across plant medicines, and it like cured my depression, which in turn cured my alcoholism, and then all that space that I had made from losing all my friends, I like was filled with all these amazing people that I could collaborate with and like really shine and build things with, and like it really just reshaped everything that I once like thought was true. And having this community as part of my life is like priceless, and I can't encourage more like for people to build community with like-minded individuals and actually like build together, because it brings to sense of fullness and completion like that I have in life now. And it feels so good. So yes.
Looking back at what activated me, I was thinking about how it kind of started externally, then inward. I was involved in a business with my family. We had an eco-friendly alternative to laundry detergent, and I just, really dived into what was going on with the environment and consumerism and how that was affecting our planet and climate change. And then from there, after I moved here from Miami, I got really involved in my health and what I was putting into my body, and how I was not really conscious of what I was eating. And I got into veganism and raw veganism, actually, and I feel like that it was actually that led me to plant medicines, which then allowed me to dive into my own mind and my consciousness and my spirit. So it's interesting how it came from the world now then to my own body, and then into my own spirit and thoughts and mind, and how that was functioning. I feel like I've just been really wanting to be of service and have purpose in the world, and to feel that I'm doing something positive and fulfilling, rather than just work 8 hours a day and not really feel like I'm doing anything good other than serving those who are destroying the world. So yeah, once I found this community, I feel like I've been able to just use these gifts that I have and really explore what it is to be in a state of collaboration with others and community, and just really feeling on path and purpose. So that was kind of like how it started for me.
I moved to LA about 8 years ago, and I've been in Sanford, I've been in Boston, and then I came out here, hailed from Florida first, but I crisscrossed the country many times, and the same things were happening everywhere I went. And I was like, must be something I'm doing. So just having that self-realization, that realization of the only common denominator is me. So, all right, universe, I knew the concept of like, okay, universe, let me have it. like, bring it on. Whatever I need to learn, let's do this. And about 4 months later, I met this wonderful woman who introduced me to this tribe. And like the first event that I went to, I called my mom and I was like, oh my God, I found my people. I found them. I knew I wasn't alone. I knew this feeling, this willingness to just like go deep, like look in people's eyes and be like, I see you, you know? I knew I wasn't the only one. And yeah, when I found this group, I was like, all right, okay. You know, and it's only gone deeper from there. And just eternally grateful for the ever-evolving, ever-widening rings of being that are unfolding as we go deeper with ourselves and with each other and with our work out in the world.
At the end of 2012, I had been researching DMT and reading books like DMT, the Spirit Molecule, and by Rick Strassman, and just researching DMT for a long time. Mushrooms have been a big part of my journey throughout college. Towards the end of 2012, I found myself in my first ayahuasca journey, the intention of which brought also the gift to my life of understanding a new cosmology which can transform how we relate to the time period we're living in, and that's the prophecy of the eagle and the condor. So this weekend had Sweat Lodge. This weekend retreat had Sweat Lodge, it had ayahuasca, it was the bringing together of North and South American medicine traditions. And in that intention, in that container, I went through an incredible awakening, and since then it's become a really powerful plant ally in my life, and it's brought tremendous healing into my life and into my family. Through my relationship with this plant, I've gotten to meet many different elders, and and that's a big part of this community as well, like mentorship from like people who I see as super embodied in their in the medicine that they're carrying. And it's like us youngers, we see that and we're like, ooh, like we want to be around that. Like our culture isn't really providing that. I was in UCSB studying school, and like the academic world at that time was just like not nurturing my heart. Like by all means, I should be grateful, and like I'm living this dream that you finish your undergrad and like everyone's asking you, are you gonna go like get a job and get married and do these things that you're supposed to do? Like you got your undergrad, you're good now. Like you gotta go like live the regular life and get a 9 to 5 and you're good. But I wasn't good, and I was completely dissatisfied with everything. And yeah, drinking these medicines, and which has resulted in, since then, many journeys out of South America to continue learning and continue the journey of healing, and yeah, it's become a really big part of this entire path that I'm walking. And along that note is, you know, this understanding of, you know, it's funny, I just updated my photo on Facebook, and I put this quote in it from this book, Bringers of the Dawn, Teachings of the Pleiadians. And it says exactly how I feel. It says, like, if you want to begin to awaken your connection to the earth and your connection to the sacred, like practice drumming, practice singing, practice dancing, like these tribal technologies, vision quests, going down to the jungle and working with plants, rites of passage have been completely missing in our culture. And as a young person growing up, I was always like, where are they? Like, where is this? Oh, I'm turning 21, I get to drink alcohol legally now. Or like graduating from high school, or I didn't even walk from college. The whole ceremony felt like a facade. It didn't feel authentic, and I don't know, something was severely missing. So for me, since then, I've been creating rites of passage. Only elders can really provide that to youngers. You know, this can be Vision Quest, this can be, for me, going to all these transformational festivals in 2013 completely opened my heart to what was possible. I didn't even know it was possible. It renewed my inspiration in what was even possible for the planet. I was like, what is happening? Like all these amazing transformational festivals, And in the words of G.K. Long from his documentary series, the Bloom series, he says, a temporary autonomous zone is a space that we get to temporarily share the experience of co-creating the world we're wanting to be living in. The metaphor of the caterpillar going through the chrysalis and activating its imaginal cells to become a butterfly. That's what's happening in these temporary autonomous zones. You might call them a liminal space, or a space for communitas, communally shared experiences of the numinous and the sacred. And whether it's a festival or an I.AM.LIFE event or a ceremony, like these are spaces where we're, through ritual, where we're remembering and activating these codings. Like we are activating each other. And that's the beauty of community. And also to quote dear friend and brother Tony Moss, who's also in the house right there, he brought to me the prophecy that says, we're no longer in the age of the guru, now we're in the age of the sangha, spiritual community. So the embodied energy that would be embodied through an individual, like a Buddha or someone like that, no longer comes through an individual, it comes through a community. So at the foundation of everything is this sense of community, and yeah, so many things to share on all that, but we shall move on. So we're here, among other things, to discuss this concept of right relationship. And a lot of people have different thoughts on what that might mean. I'll start first, before we share, like, everything, we're related to everything. One of the first teachings I received upon embarking on this journey was like, we're in relationship with everything. Our very thought is affecting everything. Like, be mindful of how you're thinking and the frequency of your thoughts. In the Red Road traditions of Native American church, there's this concept of the beauty way. Walking in beauty is the embodiment of walking in harmony with all of your relations. Like Ahome Takwiyase means like I give thanks or acknowledge all of my relations, like to the sky, to the earth, to the stars, to my family, to the insects, to the everything, right? So we're talking about right now the concept of right relationship. And we'll get into what we think maybe is not a right relationship with regards to how we're relating to plants and community and all that. So this next prompt is simply, what to you does the right relationship mean as a concept? And if you'd like to tie that in with plant medicines, feel free.
Yeah, right relationship, I feel like it comes from a place of honoring, honoring the medicine, and honoring of the self, and honoring of the planet. That we walk in right relationship when we learn about these things before we imbibe them, that we plant medicines, that we are able to witness when one needs to take a break from something, from sitting with a certain medicine, or when one feels called. It's like a space of listening, right, with your whole being to what is around you and within you, and this relationship with plant medicines versus what we'll get into next, I think, is like drugs versus plant medicines. And honestly, I think that the relationship is a lot of the definition of what's a drug and what's a medicine. And there are many things that are in the default world considered illegal, right? Like Ashley was talking about before, having these studies of the MDMA, like that is a Schedule 1. You're not even allowed to research it. You're not allowed to, in some circles, talk about it, and yet can be used as a sacrament to open the heart, to heal old wounds, to you know, break down these walls and these barriers that we build to protect ourselves because we think it makes us safe, to become vulnerable and share authentic moments of connectivity with other people. Yeah, and just the relationship, again, I believe is a lot of the definition.
Cool. Thank you. To me, what I feel it's intention with whatever it is that you're using or whatever you're partaking in has a lot to do with it for me, and why, what's your reason behind it. They are plant medicines, and they all have a purpose and a power and a gift to give you, but the intention really changes the game. Being like, plant medicines has been part of my life like since I was 15. I think I started having mushrooms, and intention was missing, and setting, and I missed for a whole lot of years the power that I could have received from these I mean, it was probably doing its thing, but not at its fullest capacity. And I mean, I was mixing with alcohol and with all sorts of things, so it wasn't like, I wasn't getting the benefit. And it wasn't until like realizing that setting intentions and sitting with these medicines, or just setting an intention really just changes it. And asking yourself why you're gonna use something and what is it for, and paying attention to that and listening to yourself and knowing when that voice of like doing something for habit comes in versus like, I am doing this because this is what it's for. With cannabis, I used to use it on like ridiculous amounts of times during the day. It was pointless almost, and now it's like I'm going into my space, I'm creativity, I'm gonna smoke, and then go in it. So I feel that with relationship, it has a lot for me to do with intention.
Something that I want to add to with what Manny was just sharing is, without proper education, if we're taught to just say no as young people, to remain in ignorance around the things that we're naturally having innate desires to understand and to explore, because we're multidimensional creatures with many different states of consciousness. One consciousness is prized over the rest, which is the linear, like caffeinated consciousness, rational, left brain, and then, but there's many other states of consciousness that we're hitting every night we're dreaming. And for example, so if we're not given the opportunity as young people, you know, and we have to think about that, like our relationship isn't just about now, it's like what do we want to create for the future. Hence the conversation and the emphasis on younger generations. What I would have appreciated as a young person is like awareness of what are these plants, what are the traditions, and who are the people they come from, and what are the traditions in which they're working with them. And should I ever feel called to work with them, this would be a right relationship with First Nations people as well, who carry some of these medicines, would be having access to go on some rite of passage or some initiation to work with them in a safe way that has been done for a long time, prior to colonialism, prior to any of these things. Something that we were supposed to get into later that we're getting into now is this conversation of what is the impact of not right relationship in our culture with a lot of these things that are Schedule 1, which we know have medicinal value, but that are like, you know, like MDMA. So thank you for sharing that. It's a good example. It's like at age 15, what could have been done? What transformation could have been possible had there been a container? And the other impact is potential dangers. Like all those dangers that people are concerned about are gone if there's right relationship, if there's proper education and the proper container, you know, in right relationship with whatever culture we're referring to work with the plants that they've historically worked with.
Impacting the planet as well, harvesting these plants. Oh yeah, I was just to add the impact that one has to harvest these plants. You know, the Alex Vine used to be able, they'd go out and harvest and make the medicine, and now tribes are having to go deeper and deeper into the jungle to find the vine because it's in such high demand. And how do we walk in right relationship with these medicines and with the process of how we're obtaining and cultivating these medicines as well.
Another impact is like, you know, people can harm themselves. Young people who are like, you know, upset with their culture and maybe lashing out because things are just messed up, they might go to explore, you know, which is coming from a pure natural place, but because everything's repressed and suppressed by our culture, a lot of dangers with having no guidance as a young person working with various plants. You know, you can really harm yourself, you can harm your psyche, you can harm your spirit. So all of that, you know, in my vision of what our relationship would look like, which I'm speaking to a little bit, would handle these issues. And it's also being reflected in the lack of rites of passage and initiations for young people. Another thing on my relationship is there is no one way. There is no, like, this is what right relationship looks like. Like, my relationship with one plant and Skylar's relationship with that same plant may look completely different. What right relationship is for me may be very different from what it is for her, for that plant. So from the outside, we also can save ourselves from the potential judgments of others, of thinking we know what is and is not right relationship. It really is a personal thing. If you were to start working with cannabis right now, you know, you don't start a relationship in right relationship, in my opinion. I think it's a dance, it's a conversation, it's dynamic, it's always evolving, it's always changing. It's not like, this is the way. You can take on a study for a period of time to explore a particular structure. Like, I'm gonna work with this plant this much for this amount of time, and then, you know, things change. So another thing is, we just were at LIB, Lightning in a Bottle Festival, and we offered 3 workshops. One on Hape, which is a tobacco snuff from Amazon, blown into the nose for cleansing, healing, grounding, clarity. A lot to say about Hape. We also did one with Guayusa. We did a dream visioning workshop, and we also did one with cacao. These workshops and ceremonies are also, the reason we're doing them is because we feel to be guardians of these medicines, they have to be shared in a way that is helping people find a connection to it through an understanding of what is this medicine and what are its traditional uses, and and how are you guys working with it. And that way we're not appropriating, we're not like, oh, we're doing this thing. It's like, no, people need to understand where things come from as well, the origins of things. It's really important to prevent from appropriation, to prevent from misunderstandings. You know, I'm not someone to say tradition is the only way to move forward, but it's an incredibly important half of the coin to talk about how to work with any plant. So right relationship, therefore, also implies deep understanding and respect for the potential lineages and traditions of whatever plant we're referring to. So we're going to speak about this concept of drugs versus medicine and how our culture kind of has them reversed. So I want to hear from you guys. Any perspectives, commentaries, reflections on the ways that that may be true in our current culture, and if you feel to bring up any specific plants as examples, feel free.
Drugs versus medicines. So I forgot who it was that said it, but let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. One of the first, who?
Aristotle. One of the two.
It was a great quote. Yeah, I dealt with, for a very big portion of my life, indigestion, acid reflux, just stomach destroyed after every single meal. Parents would force me to eat whatever I had to eat, the meat on the table, cheese, all this stuff. I didn't want it because it made me feel bad, and I had to eat all this stuff. doctors gave me all kinds of pills, and one pill gave me a different side effect. All these things just were like clashing, and it wasn't until I made the decision to change the way I eat. And that was my first experience, one of my first experiences in like, this is the medicine. And beyond that, cannabis, I've been ADD for as long as I can remember, and that medicine really helps me focus. I was lucky enough to have my parents not put me on pills. Depression, I was also lucky enough that they didn't put me on pills for that, but I basically just had to deal with depression and numb it out, and plant medicines cured me from that. I was having this actual thought in my head today because I'm going to the doctor next month, and having the question that they always ask, you know, are you taking any drugs? And I was like, how am I going to answer this right now? Like, are these considered drugs? I'm like, I regularly partake in all of these medicines that are helping me with all of these conditions. I don't think they're drugs. So, don't really know how to have that conversation, but I feel like one of the main things that stands out to me is that a lot of our medicines have a really bad list of side effects. And a lot of these drugs cure and have very little to no side effects. So, I don't know what they're marketing, but this stuff works, and everything else doesn't seem to be working for me, at least. I know for some people and for certain conditions, the other medicines are like super necessary, and thanks to those. But there's a lot of conditions that we can heal with plant medicines, with oils, with just herbs that grow in your garden. Yeah, say no to drugs. There's a lot of medicine out there.
Yeah. For our plant medicines, like side effects may include, you know, expanded consciousness, joy, community, empathy, healing of depression and addictions, you know, overwhelming feelings of love and connectivity to yourself and the planet. You know, which is very different from the drugs that they prescribe. You know, it is the Food and Drug Administration that they call it medicine. And back to what we were saying before, you know, all these Schedule 1 medicines that tried to come out in like the 60s, right? 60s and 70s. It was like all of this possibility that was really the groundwork for all of our under incognito, like mycelial mat research, right? That we've that we've been doing within communities or with oneself, with various plant medicines, even before we knew that they were medicines, but going, there's something in this, there's something, don't know what it is. And then now we have this beautiful technological mycelial mat where we can start to connect to all of this research and this data and these communities and these projects like I.AM.LIFE that are able to change our relationship to the programming of what is right and what is wrong, because you know, we're in it for the enlightenment and not for the profit, not for the bottom line. And that's the for me to see like right relationship with what it is we're doing with this. Like, you know, if we come together, are we doing it because we're like, ooh, I gotta make rent, I gotta, you know, be a superstar medicine person? Or is this about like providing a space of integrity where people can come together and heal themselves, you know, within community, and be able to reflect that off of each other, and know themselves, know thyself. Right?
One more thing. Another thing that I've noticed a lot with the medicines that we get provided with, a lot of them don't heal. They conceal your issue, they like tone it down a little bit, you don't feel the symptoms, you stop taking the medicine and it's like boom. It's like right back. And there's certain plant medicines that you do like need to like consistently take for the effects, but there's some that are like a one-time fix, and a lot of people get healed with that one. It's a healing, like it removes that illness entirely. So I feel that that's another thing that stands out to me between the drugs that doctors prescribe and these plant medicines, and the natural indigenous wisdom that the earth provides for us at all times for free.
I have witnessed some close family members, my mom and my sister, basically almost die at the hands of Western pharmaceuticals. I was talking to this guy in New Zealand in 2012 who was banned as a medical doctor for being such a rogue maverick character. He coming from that world, referred to it as the pharmaceutical machine. And it's like a pharmaceutical complex. And that experience really shook me up. I was like, whoa, like if there was ever something I needed to have inspiration to explore an alternative, it was witnessing my family members in the hands of the only thing that really was, that I know is supposed to help them heal, like the guy in the white coat, and the people with all the expensive therapies and chemotherapy and all. And then I witnessed one of those family members go through this journey of healing with plant medicines, and yeah, it's really insane what our culture is doing to us, what we have to put up with. You know, our economy is better when people are sick and dying. Like, we have this capitalism, neo-capitalism, that is creating conditions that are preventing the things that can help us to be fully healed and whole. And I feel like my mission and dharma is to support in whatever small way I can to change that. I believe that our culture has these words backwards. I think that everything we're calling, basically everything that we're calling drugs, most of them are medicines. Things we're calling medicines are actually drugs, so having that switched would be interesting. I've often thought about that. So moving on, we'll get into some other territory here.
Sure. I was going to say there some substances that people take in order to go to other levels of consciousness aren't necessarily medicine, and it's kind of that relationship between like mambe or coca as this like beautiful medicine that's used in the Andes to help with elevation sickness and these sorts of things, versus cocaine, which is the non-medicinal version of those things. So just because it's illegal doesn't mean it's awesome in plant medicine. Good, just to clarify.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I forgot that we wanted to talk about that. So yeah, there's a few categories of coca leaf. So I'm gonna give a couple examples of plant medicines, one of which is right relationship and one of which is not. So we have coca and cocaine. We have cacao and we have chocolate. We have sacred tobacco, North, Central, and South America, and then used for like as one of the considered the grandfather of all the different master plants. And then you have cigarettes. So there's a lot more examples, but let's keep it with those three. And the topic of this panel is right relationship with plants is or can create the conditions for right relationship with life. Before we can talk about what's that even going to look like, we also have to acknowledge where is that not happening. So we have coca leaf, one of the most nutritionally dense superfoods on the planet, like used by some of the most wise, in my opinion, First Nations people on the planet in the mountains of South America, Colombia, Ecuador, Bolivia, chewing coca leaf or making a powder from it, which helps with altitude sickness. If you fly into Cusco, it's a 10,000 foot elevation. You're going to need something to help you with that altitude sickness. You're going to be walking up a hill and be winded, you know. So these plants are used for ceremonial purposes, used for divination, coca, used for stamina and endurance, and has a long time of it has enough nutritional density for your bone density. Like you could live on coca, theoretically, I've been told. And then of course you refine it out of its traditional, and they have entire ceremonies just based on the teachings of reciprocity that they facilitate with coca. Like this plant is teaching these teachings of reciprocity, these universal teachings. And then you have cocaine. It's stripped from its origins. It's refined, hyper refined, and at this point, it's lost its spirit. It's now addicted. It's a soul eater in certain others' perspectives. It will take your soul. An example of right relationship, what's possible, and then something else. Cacao, in a ceremonial context, is a medicine. If you're just eating chocolate, that's just pure indulgence. There's nothing wrong with conscious hedonism and indulgence in a really good piece of chocolate. But when you put in sugar and dairy and these other things, you literally are losing the medicinal qualities, the heart-opening qualities of the cacao. And then with tobacco, something used so sacred, as an offering, as a way to express reciprocity, giving back to the earth. You go to a sacred site, offer some tobacco. You go to a sacred fire, offer some tobacco. You're praying with your sacred pipe, put in some tobacco. Like, it's such a reverential medicine, and it amplifies, in many beliefs, it amplifies your intentions, your thoughts, and then you have people smoking cigarettes. They can cause cancer. My grandfather's fighting stage 4 lung and brain cancer, largely caused by his smoking of cigarettes. So, yeah, drugs versus medicine. So weaving this into our next topic here, this has to do with, there's a lot going on in our world right now with our need in the Western world to look at how we are relating with First Nations people, with Indigenous communities abroad, but especially at home. So we look at Standing Rock. Standing Rock is something that will continue to happen if we're not able as communities, as individuals, as families, and as a nation, I believe, to acknowledge the genocide that's been happening for over 500 years to First Nations people all over the planet. It will continue, things like Standing Rock, I believe, will continue to happen until we're able to acknowledge that. And I believe that oppression of Indigenous people, oppression of plant medicines, the war on consciousness, oppression of the feminine energy on the planet, the destruction of our biosphere, these are all coming from the same place, lack of right relationship. So I would like to ask, what is possible for our relations, for right relationship to be created in our communities and our families with plants? Like, what is the relationship between right relationship with plants and right relationship with Indigenous communities and First Nations people?
I think the right relationship is where it begins, and the traditions that are handed down, and how we can you repeat the question again? Just so to be really specific.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just a really big one.
I know, yeah.
Really
the original question is, what is the relationship between how we can have a right relationship with plant medicines, but also right relationship with Indigenous and First Nations people? You can also have any commentaries on that, like commentaries on how the cultural genocide of First Nations people all over the planet is similar to the oppression of the plants that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the Indigenous people, knowing that they are the ones who are providing this lineage for us, and that through this appropriation or this the elimination of these Indigenous cultures for centuries, it's been going on the planet since time began. This need to expand and assimilate is very Western concept, and these plants are coming to us from the deep jungle, from these places that were once untouched, once unknown, that really grew in this, in some cases, insular community, where these were traditions that grew out of connection to the earth, out of connection to the divine. And we need to be aware, through this right relationship with where these medicines come from, and again how they're coming to us. I recently had a conversation around like the sourcing of, we're back to MDMA, and how it affects communities, how it affects old groves of these trees, and how these trees are part of this eco structure of people who live on this land, and how does our need, or the larger cultural need to go out and party on a weekend, affect the quality of water, in the places that we're getting these medicines from. And through education, through connecting and getting curious about what is it that I'm doing and how does it impact? What's the line that it comes from? It can really start to change our relationship with what that medicine is, and are we willing to participate in that, or is there something that we can do to help support the communities that are providing these things? With our tea, we were really lucky to be able to have a company that's providing a beautiful medicine to us, Warming, owned by Diana's family, that is harvested and hand dried, hand harvested, and they're really supporting the local growers, and whereas some companies might not be walking in that kind of a relationship with even their growing practices. And we as a community, as a project, as a nonprofit, what are we willing to boycott, as opposed to boycott, not buy that thing, but what will we invest our money towards? And Warming and other beautiful projects are definitely worth that, because they give back in heart to these medicines.
So, having just gotten the window on our timing, I want to move along to potentially our final question. It's maybe the biggest one, and that is, what do you think, as a younger generation, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing our planet, and what can our relationship with plants, what is the vision you hold for the future of our relationship with plants, and how can that help to address some of these challenges?
I think one of the biggest issues we're facing right now is lack of connection to each other, and just the idea that we're all separate. I think that's probably the biggest issue. Not living life knowing that we're all connected, that we're all family, that we're all one, that community. And I think for me personally, my experience with plant medicines has connected me not only to Mother Earth, but also allowed me, particularly with mushrooms and with ayahuasca, I've been able to have not the feeling but the knowing that we are all connected and we all come from the essence of love, and really that's you know, our souls are, I feel like it's just like the sacred glue, you know, that holds everything together. And I think having that vision and having that knowing that we're all connected, it completely changes your perspective on life, your perspective on what you're doing, and really pushes you to use your gifts to be able to carry that message and inspire others to look at life through that lens of unity. And I've always had the, you know, through books, spiritual books and things like that, I've always like known, like, yeah, you know, essentially it's all love, we're all one, we're all connected. But I feel that with plant medicines, it really puts you in that space and container that it's more than just a feeling, it's knowing. It's the wisdom of the earth teaches you that and carries that message.
I think one of the biggest issues we have that David touched on earlier is we're mainly influenced by our peers, and like working with the indigenous tribes, working with elders, working with intergenerational, like a full range, you get a little bit better guidance, I feel, and it's not just like one-sided. You're getting this wisdom from, I've experienced it before, and this like fresh ideas and imagination of this, I'm just going for it because I haven't gotten it yet. And having all that information like to share, and having them guided through these rites of passage, using plant medicines at certain ages for certain reasons or whatnot, would really make a difference, rather than just letting these kids out with like send them to the wolves, you know, and they're out doing psychedelics and doing all these things with no guidance. So education, intergenerational communication, and idea sharing would really help, I feel, weave a stronger little basket of consciousness.
Yeah, I liked what Diana was saying about this lack of connection, you know, and that lack of connection from other with people, but also with the planet, and how just going out and like taking your shoes off and standing in grass can like change your day. You know, that we are all one, but also with the chairs that we're sitting in, you know, these are made of resources that were harvested from the earth, you know, even plastics and oil, you know, these are it's the blood of the earth, you know, it's living, and even though we've separated everything out and made it into its one elemental unit over here, and then this is over there, that it still comes from the same thing that we're made of, you know, because in the end, like Tony says, we're all stardust, you know. We and the planet, everything is made out of the same things, the elemental building blocks of the universe, and just knowing that that we're all, you know, a combination of different experiences, but the same stuff, you know, the star stuff that they talk about. That these bodies and these opportunities that we have to connect with each other, to connect with the planet through imbibing of these plant and or animal medicines that can heal our disconnection, you know, that disassociative quality that sitting down at the television and watching a commercial can have, that convinces you that you need something other than you know, that these connecting, these imbibing of medicines, whether it be food or you know, things that induce psychedelic experiences, that these are ways that we can come back to ourselves. And, you know, we don't have to heal the planet, we heal ourselves. And in doing that, we heal our relationship with what we're doing to the planet, and then the planet can heal itself, you know. It all starts with healing our relationship with ourselves and loving ourselves.
I think the biggest challenge is we're not in harmonious relations with the earth, with ourselves, and with each other. I think that we get to practice and learn what right relationship looks and feels like through the microcosm of what plants we're working with. That would imply right relationship with indigenous culture. That would imply ritual technologies in modern settings that can help to ground and create a foundation for community. I think at its core, like for me, it's lots of community, lots of shared meaning, lots of shared meaning and ritual, and lots of a shared language for how to articulate our experiences of the divine and the sacred other than God and like religion, you know? Yeah, I believe with every fiber of my being that the path of plants, like if anyone's ever seen that Hopi prophecy etched into the stone of like two paths for humanity, and one path is implying the mind and technology, and one path is implying the heart and the earth. And one clearly just dies, they just don't make it. And the other one is like sustainable and community and food and thriving. So I guess we'll leave it with that, you know. Actually, no, we'll leave it with this prophecy of the eagle and the condor, which we spoke to a little bit. It is really the foundation of a lot of what we're doing, and it speaks to help us understand the last 500 years that we've been living in was prophesized. You know, there's the eagle and the condor. The eagle represents the Western technological industrial world, the masculine, the mental, the mind. All those who have participated in colonialism for the past 500 and ongoing to this day years. The condor would represent the feminine, the heart, this spirituality, and First Nations people, the guardians of the earth. And the prophecy was that there would be this period of about 500 years where the nation of the eagle would almost completely destroy and the nations of the condor. But that around 1990, 2000 would enter into a new 500-year period where exists the possibility for these birds and these worldviews, previously binary, separate worldviews, to begin to fly together again. And so, you know, as we look to the future of what it is that we want to create, it's not about returning to tradition, and it's not about marching forward blind to where our traditions. It's literally about this fusion of you know, right relationship with technology looks like a festival where we're using all of our highest technology and sound and lights and art to help to create spaces for people to come together. So, you know, this neo-tribal kind of renaissance that we get to participate in is beautiful, but it's always about that merging. And Hausch. So we're going to take about 5 minutes for questions. Short little window. What's the best way to do that?
I have one.
Okay, maybe just ask. Yeah, just ask. Use your adult voice and just ask from wherever you're standing.
The adult voice. As I was listening to you, what I was reflecting on was I turned 53 January 5th and take really good care of myself. And with that and ever-emerging advents in technology, there's a good chance I'm going to be around for quite some time. And who knows, I might have 10, 20, 30 years left. So my perspective on wanting to make a difference in the planet It's very different, I would imagine, to yours, knowing that, you know, the shit will probably hit the fan after I'm gone. I'm wondering how it feels. Right? I mean, really hit the fan. I wonder how it feels, since you are young people that are actually conscious and aware of what's taking place in the planet, you know, and can see the various directions humanity could go in. How does that feel, you know, for you guys? Knowing that what it is you're inheriting that the adults have so fucked up.
Well, thanks for messing it up. No. I feel after like meeting a lot of the people who are reading at festivals, meeting these guys. I mean, I'm like in the mid-range. I'm like kind of a youth. I'm 33, and I'm like in this weird little middle space. I have mega hope. Like hope has been totally restored. I'm meeting a whole lot of young kids. I mean, at these festivals, I'm meeting like 20-year-old kids that are like just on. Like they are awake, they are on, they are not drunk. They are in a much more amazing space than I was when I was their age. They're learning all of this indigenous wisdom. They're learning about sustainability. They're learning how to build. I mean, and that's just this little bubble of the festival culture, but I feel that it's expanding, it's growing at a rapid rate, and the more people that experience that, it'll ripple out into their own little communities. Even in Miami, when Diana was in Miami last, she found community that is like working with plant medicines and with ritual and sweat lodge, and they're doing all these things and cacao ceremonies, and I was like, I never would have guessed that that's happening in a space of debauchery like Miami. And it's there, so it's spreading, and I have a lot of hope, and I'm like, I used to be very doom and gloomy, and it's a lot of that has changed into like just we're heading in the right direction. I feel even like, and I also feel like what we have with the whole government and everything, it's like it's that boiling point where like shit is about to hit the fan, but with that comes the ability to create a new reality, and we're like kind of like all like at our training wheels doing our thing, and when that moment comes, we're gonna like hit it hard, and we're gonna succeed.
Yeah, I agree with that. Be like, this isn't working. Be like, well, we have a proposal. Actually, we're already doing it. I'm with Manny. Like, I refuse to believe that we're on a track where we're gonna extinguish ourselves. You know, I cannot believe that we have come this far and we've evolved this much, and we've discovered these medicines, and we're building these communities. And these connections and evolving so much only to destroy ourselves. How do we make sure that, you know, these divergent paths can transition over? I don't know. I think time will tell. But I think that we are all in not only the conversation, but also the practice and the doing and the action of creating things other than this default world. And I just heard, I was at this festival this last weekend, and this DJ played a song, and this woman was talking about, in a sampling, you know, you can't not be saved, you know? We can't not be saved. And the only hell that exists on earth is not knowing that, you know? And that's true. It's this like, I can't, or the doom and gloom. Yeah, we're on this path, this trajectory, but we're going to figure it out. We're doing it.
There's a lot of reason to validate feelings of grief and despair, and not a lot of spaces to safely feel those things. I have been trained over the years to facilitate some work with Generation Waking Up and the Pachamama Alliance, as well as Joanna Macy's The Work That Reconnects. This is work that there's literally something called the despair ritual and the grief ritual, and such experiences of being able to come into contact with your pain, your shadow, your despair, and your grief. Have the awareness, if you stop numbing yourself, if we stop numbing ourselves to look at the reality. Before we talk about what we want to create, we have to get present and grounded in what is so right now. And what is so right now is there's like a lot of havoc on the earth and species extinction, and like it's not looking super good. And sucks to say that, but it would be inauthentic to not acknowledge it as such with this type of language. And so, you know, I'm not about to facilitate a despair ritual, like we're not about to go into all of that, but you know, it's important that before we look to what we want to create, we have to find spaces to, and community can provide that. Community is like this web that you can fall upon, or family, tribe, whatever you want to call it. So after doing that, yes, like I'm inspired like crazy by everything that we've been talking about and everything that I know to be, you know, I know solutions to every problem on our planet already exist. The solutions to clean the oceans, the solutions to clean the air and the atmosphere, the solution to cooking, to making enough food for everybody. You know, but lastly, it's going to take, you know, I'm very idealistic, but I used to be even more so, and I used to think, oh yeah, all these things are going to happen like in a decade or something like that. And now, as a result of learning the process of patience and one step at a time, you know, and speaking to various elders, it's like, there's going to be work for at least 7 generations forward. Like, it's going to be my children's children's children, children's children, children that are maybe going to see the things that I know are possible and are coming. You know, so it's not like things are going to change overnight. So you got to be in it for the long haul, one step at a time, and you know, it's really about preparing the way for the future generations to come. You know, because they are coming in so crystalline and clear and unable to be affected by this crazy toxicity. And they're like laughing at it all. So I have faith because of that.
One more question, but maybe not all the people on the panel.
Yeah, sure. You mentioned in the context of working with. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So I'm turning 65 soon, and I actually think we've left a legacy from the 60s that you know, was a blueprint for communes and community, and a lot of people, I guess, strayed from that, but a lot of us kept it and grew it. Tony's the example too. And 70s was all about the apocalypse, and all the music and everything was all like, you know, it's going to end. We're on the verge of destruction. And that's over 40 years ago. And so I'm not really optimistic, but I'm hopeful, because we weren't that optimistic then, thinking that we'd last this long. And so I think the idea of people, there's more aware people on the earth now than has ever existed. On the other hand, there's probably just as many, if not more, that aren't aware or distracted. But it doesn't really take that many people that are aware to make change. So, anyway.
Thank you for the comment. Is there maybe one last question? Here.
Yeah, we talk about working with plant medicine. You mentioned being careful of cultural appropriation. So what steps do you take or not take to keep from appropriating cultures to indigenous peoples who work with medicine?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Repeat the question, por favor.
Oh, no, I meant you on the mic.
Oh, the question is, we were speaking about cultural appropriation, and the question is, what steps can we take or do we take to make sure that that's not happening? In other words, what steps do we take to embody right relationship with the plants, and also a relationship with, for example, the traditions they may come from? So, I spoke to it a little bit, for example, with Hape. For those who are familiar with Hape, when we held our workshop at Lighting in a Bottle just now, we were sharing about Hape, and you know, I also am a combo practitioner. I work with combo. So when I'm sharing a medicine with someone that has a lineage of origins, like, first of all, how I would not appropriate is I would not just start purchasing these medicines online, which some of them you can, and I wouldn't start doing that and then just serving them. Like, for me, the level of integrity and for right relationship, it means, no, I actually went down to the jungle. I did a training in a dieta with combo, which involved working with the Mansis tribe that carries that medicine and receiving their blessing to carry that medicine. So what would potentially be appropriation would be maybe not receiving the blessing from an elder, and just choosing rogue status to just find these medicines and distribute them, whether from a place of ego or pure intent, it still could be seen as appropriation. So having the blessing of that community or that tradition or someone from who is like respected within that tradition is critical, maybe step number one. For something like what we're doing with Hape, having a strong relationship of over 4 years working with that medicine and understanding its original, kind of understandings, and having relationships with the tribes that are making these medicines, who are a lot of these medicines, you can't have access to them. Some of them you can buy online, and I don't agree with that really being available for just anyone to like purchase combo online. It's potentially dangerous, but for most of the medicines that I work with, coming from direct relationships with these communities. So from that relationship, without that relationship, no medicine. And
we're done. Thank you, guys.
I'm going to say a couple things. So I'm going to want to like stand in front of you here, but thank you guys so much for coming. It's been such a inspiring to be part of these like brothers and sisters in this movement, and I definitely feel like I'm in this kind of same generation of jumping in this together and feeling the call, and also being a part of this process of creating new ceremonies, new relationships, because the way that the medicines are in the communities we're in right now, they can't possibly be the same as they would be in the jungle. With people that live in the jungle, we're all Western people, we're brought up in this culture, and we have a whole different worldview. And so we're all creating this together, which is really inspiring, and to be able to be in the United States too, because I mean we're the melting pot, and we're kind of how do we find and create this a new type of relationship and a new type of ceremony that works for us, while learning from the old, but also bringing what's new to it as well. So I have a lot of hope as well, and I was writing all these notes while you guys were talking, but so yeah, and I guess the only other thing I was going to say is that a lot of times when I talk to people that are embarking on this this medicine path, is that our egos have a very different perspective on time than our souls do. And I think there's a sense of feeling like calamity is just around the corner, but it's kind of felt like that for a long time. But at the same time, the medicines have taught me that trust is such a huge part of this process, and to be able to, I have no idea how I got to be in this place where I'm sitting here talking about this stuff with a microphone in front of all these people, and then we're supposed to be online. I don't know. So, we're all on some kind of train here, and I'm just really glad to be on the train with all of you guys. So, thanks. So yeah, I'm just gonna few more things here, and then we're gonna end with just a little tiny bit of music to end out all this talking. But big, huge thanks to the volunteers this evening. I've been trying to we are building a team to take over the Aware project so that I'm a little more freed up. So Malia has been amazing. She's at the back, and Ryan, thank you all, and then Victoria, or Veronica and Shelby have helped out tonight too, so thank you all for our volunteers. Yay!
And thank you to the I.AM.LIFE Tea House for serving us all tea tonight. Yay! And thank you also to the collective. This is my friend's space. She's an artist. She's done this artwork here. So it's really great to be able to support other friends and community here. So with that, I'll give it back to these guys to end us off with a little bit of music.
Before we do that, just also want to plug quickly for anyone who wants to stay connected to our organization, our nonprofit I.AM.LIFE. We're doing events generally about 4-5 times a year in LA. The next one will be November 11th, and it's a little ways away, but if you want to stay connected to anything about what we're doing, it's I.AM.LIFEproject.org, and you can find us on Facebook as well. It's a good way to stay connected. So, and you can also just talk to us and afterwards and exchange info. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So for this prayer, feel free to close your eyes if you'd like. It'll be a meditation. We're going to be sharing, we just brought a few instruments. This is a Siberian mouth harp. And these are the frame drums. Do you want us to share anything about the frame drum?
Sure. Yeah, the frame drum is one of the oldest archetypal instruments on the planet, and it's the circle, it's the womb, it's the earth, it's our heart space, and each of the strokes that one plays on the drum represents each of the elements of the earth. So as we play, we're honoring the elements and returning back to our natural rhythms of the heart and of the breath, and really honoring these roots of where we come from through drumming and sound, and activating our vibration within and without into each other.
Should you feel called to dance, please do.